Good evening. Thank you for joining me for another episode of JM Kazi podcast. And tonight we're going to be speaking about Las Vegas, and we're going to go through a case of scenarios that you can ponder on, and you can make a determination on what you believe is truth from a lie, fact from fiction. So we're going to start off with Orlando Anderson. You see him on the video. Of course, we know that Tupac Shakur is in Las Vegas. He has been given a decision to make, which was by a judge, and that was to perform a community service, which was a charity for police officers. And that was his punishment for his crime that he committed. So he's going to be in Las Vegas. He didn't really want to go to Las Vegas. And of course, he decided to go to Las Vegas. And of course, he had some other matters to take care of. And without sidetracking and going down another path, he had his family member who stolen a gun from him, AK-47. And that was business that was being done in Atlanta. So going back to the whole scenario, we have Orlando Anderson by himself walking through the MGM Grand. And as you can see in the video, there's hundreds of people. I mean, it's pretty much packed like sardines. And, you know, if you look at the video, he's wearing a number 13. And I only say that just so that if you go and look at the video, you'll be able to see that he's wearing a number 13 jersey. So he's walking through MGM Grand, and pretty obscure by himself. And there's an assortment of stories that didn't have tickets, did have tickets, or was there to meet people, his people, which was his uncle Keefe and other people that were associated with Southside Crips or friends of Southside Crips. And he's walking through, and you can see the surveillance, of course, following him through. But without sidetracking, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but if they have these recordings of him there at the MGM Grand, then they certainly have other recordings of him, the aftermath of when he's walking off with whoever that person is. I'm sure there's cameras that are available to see the angle of where that person that shakes his hand after he is being questioned by security and police, the person that leads off with him, where do they go? I'm certain there's video footage on that. But going back to what we're speaking of, Orlando Anderson, he gets his ass kicked, and then he gets let off by some person, and then we have no idea where he goes. Of course, Tupac Shakur blazing out, taking off. But to back up a little bit, there's just a weird coincidence that with all hundreds of people that were there, Orlando Anderson and Tupac Shakur cross paths. Of course, Trayvon Lane whispers something into Tupac's ear, and Tupac goes and starts mopping on him. And, you know, the fight ensues. Death Row Entourage start attacking Orlando Anderson. Suge Knight gets in some licks, as well as everybody else. And I believe, and I don't know exactly who it is, but I'm sure it's Death Row security, Bloods, that are attacking Orlando Anderson. So the aftermath of it all, Tupac Shakur takes off with the large entourage, and according to stories, they go back to Suge Knight's house, a gated community, and of course take care of whatever business it is that they have to take care of. So some time pass. So here's another odd thing to think about. They didn't know exactly, and I say they, I mean Orlando Anderson and Keefe didn't know exactly what time that Tupac Shakur and the entourage would be taking off from Suge Knight's house to go to 662. Although there was probably a time that they had to meet to start the function, Tupac Shakur and the entourage were probably not known for being prompt and being on time. So essentially, they could just show up whenever they wanted. Now, obviously, they're not going to show up 2 hours after the start time, but give or take, they might show up 10 minutes later or 15 minutes later or whatnot. I mean, rappers don't have a set time to be. If they go on stage at 9 o'clock, they're not going to get fired because they don't go on stage at 9 o'clock. And we all know that this happens. There's several rappers that don't even show up on time and the crowd is waiting. I've been to a few rap concerts in my life, and the rappers don't show up on time. Of course, everybody's pissed off, but nonetheless, everybody's happy to see them. Show goes on. So, it's really a shot in the dark, okay? And it's another coincidence. It's really a shot in the dark to run into Tupac Shakur and the entourage as the entourage is taking off to 662, going down the streets they're going down, right? And then they happen to see them. Keefe D happens to see Suge Knight, Tupac, and the entourage because they're looking in car windows. And I'm almost certain that traffic is stacked because it is fight night, bumper to bumper traffic. And for some odd reason, there's no traffic that is present, which is very odd. So again, the story that Keefe D tells has a lot of holes in it. And of course, it's really a story that he tells that he is able to convince everybody, well, not everybody, but most people that believe anything, make it sound convincing that they were the ones that killed Tupac Shakur. So the entourage is driving down, and there's a lot of commotion going on in the streets, I can bet. Noise from cars, people pumping their stereos, because of course that's what people do. And a lot of other street commotion that's going on, right? But for some odd reason, they hear some girls yelling on the top of their lungs over all the other noises that are taking place. They hear them. Tupac, Tupac, Tupac. So they hear this and they make a U-turn, right? In all this traffic, which I guess these guys are, they have Knight Rider or something. They're able to jump over these cars or able to make all these U-turns, and they're able to stop all this traffic so they can make a U-turn and make the U-turn. Of course, they pull out the gun and they start firing. And then, of course, I'm imagining that Suge Knight is going to duck down when he sees these bullets flying his direction. And he probably, I mean, he's not going to see them flying at him, but I'm just speaking figuratively, see bullets flying at him, and he's going to keep his head up instead of probably trying to duck down and pull Tupac down, as he has mentioned. So I'm assuming that he ducked down. Keefe D says he looks over and they lock eyes, which is, I call a bunch of BS. There's no way that he's going to lock eyes when these bullets are flying if he's going to be ducking. I mean, come on now. I mean, that's like saying that Suge Knight wanted to commit suicide that night by locking eyes and not doing what human nature tells you to duck when bullets are flying your way. So the story just is, certain elements of the story are just outlandish. They don't make any sense. And then just backtracking, the Southside Crips, Orlando Anderson, or even the entourage that were there with them in the car, they're willing to become prime suspects because if you just do simple equation, right, you would lead there to believe that if, like a movie, right, Menace to Society or Boys in the Hood, the guy that gets his ass kicked always goes back for revenge and retaliation. But kicker to this is that this is reality and this is not a movie. So I can't believe that these gangsters were stupid enough to go out and exact revenge the same night, 2 hours later, and not think to themselves, well, if we go do this, we do know that we're going to be prime suspects. Most gangsters don't do things that way. Okay, they wait for the right time and the right place, because revenge will come, whether it's a week later or 2 weeks later. But 2 hours later, you're really committing a suicide mission, because you don't know how many people are in that entourage. You don't know how many people in that entourage have guns, and you're also dealing with the element of that Tupac Shakur's entourage are bloods, okay, felons, if that. They're packing heat, okay, and I'm talking about you don't even have a real count on how many people are in that entourage. So you're gonna go with one gun, according to Greg Cade, and they had one gun, okay, and I imagine that there's about 13 shots or 15 shots in a Glock 40 or a Glock 9 or whatever they were using that night. I'm not going to get into fine details. I mean, it was a Glock. Okay, there was bullets in there, and there's not more than 15, if I had to guess. So they're going to go with one gun, and they're going to go and blast Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight, and they're not going to think to themselves like, hey, this entourage, they may be rolling deep. They may come after us. Well, we have one gun with 15 bullets, and most of the shots were shot and directed to kill Tupac and Suge Knight. It doesn't make any sense. One gun, suicide mission, and not have any real idea or real plans or real information on who is there, who is present. Now, what does sound plausible to me, and you got to think about this one, is whether it was 4 guys or 3 guys. Okay, you pick the number, but just for the sake of the argument, 3 or 4 guys who have a plan, who knows what the entourage has. If it is indeed true that they were told to disarm, and you know that these guys aren't gonna shoot back possibly, or you have the upper edge and knowing that they don't have any guns, and you know where they're gonna be, and you know where the car's gonna be, and you know what location they're gonna be, and you're getting inside information, that sounds more of a plausible plan than some freaking 4 gangbangers with no real information, with not knowing who's going to be in an entourage, who's going to have guns, who may give chase, and a lot of other unknowns. And not only that, but also being prime suspect of being the shooters, are going to go out and exact revenge 2 hours later. I call BS. The other thing too is they supposedly were at 662 in a blue van and a white Cadillac. Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. They're going to be in the hornet's nest on the enemy's territory because 662 was owned by Suge Knight. You're going to have a ton of Bloods that are going to be there that night. Snoop Dogg and DPG weren't there, so there's really no heavy presence of Crips, if there was going to be any Crips there, but I'd say that there probably wouldn't be any, just because all the boys are going to be there. So that's going to be predominantly Bloods. They're going to be there. They're in the club. They're not hanging out in the parking lot, which would sound really stupid at this point. So they're going to be in the hornet's nest in the parking lot. There's no security outside in the parking lot, which many venues, they do have a security guard or somebody that's posted outside. And of course, if anybody's out there, they're going to not see these guys in a freaking blue van or a white Cadillac and ask them any questions. You have Reggie Wright Jr., who is supposedly there at 662, according to his alibi. So, I mean, it doesn't make any sense that these guys are going to be there at 662 waiting and then they take off. I mean, all these stories are just unfathomable. They just don't make sense. But what does make sense, as I mentioned, was four guys having a plan, having inside information, knowing when this entourage is going to be going that direction at a certain time, or having somebody in the inside tell them exactly where they're at and where they're going to be located at a certain time. That's more plausible than some freaking gangbangers taking a shot in the dark and running into Tupac in the MGM Grand, running into Tupac on the boulevard, fighting traffic, hearing women scream on top of their lungs, knowing where Tupac's at, having one gun, going and shooting these guys, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing there's going to be a chase, and basically becoming prime suspects and not really caring about any of that. To me, Orlando Anderson was a pawn, okay? And that's where what it really boils down to. So I want you to think about those talking points. And if it makes any sense to you, certainly believe what you want. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I have my own beliefs. Hit like, hit subscribe, and we'll see you again, and you'll hear from me again on the next episode of Jam Podcasts. Peace.